Okay, 6 o'clock. Not sure what's going to happen. I am a one-man show tonight. John is at the Cardinal game, and Chris Jeffrey is in London. I do see Jimmy Smith on the line, though. So, Jimmy, if you don't mind, a quick notice on manning the chat box, that would be great.
I've got it.
Okay, great. Um, Welcome, everybody. Session two already. Just a couple of quick notices to start off here with. As always, we try to keep the lines muted and the chat box is open. Jimmy is kind enough to gonna monitor that. So if you can monitor, if you can keep yourself muted, I see. All right. Okay. Some reminders. Here's the rest of the schedule for our kudos next week. Sunday night, we do the 3A kudos. Moving right along. The new officials meeting taking place at the AI office this Wednesday. A little bit of a difference. Actually, this Wednesday is the session that John McDonald will be running, and he wanted me to make sure that everybody understood that it's not just for brand new officials. This session he's going to be covering crew of two, and he's encouraging all members to join as a refresher to get ourselves ready. So the AI office at 6 this coming Wednesday with John McDonald. And then for the folks down here in Tucson, whoops, I gotta jump ahead here. Down here in Tucson, we are doing our Tuesday meetings. We'll continue to go this Tuesday. Get caught up here. Sorry about that. There we go. Um, and again, that's that exporting chance. That date, oh, I forgot to change that. The time is 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. And there's John's second meeting will be on October 22nd, 27th, and that's going to be crew of three. All right, so let's get right to the video. I want to start off by apologizing to Quentin, Stacy, and Danny. This is the only picture that they sent me, unfortunately, so it's a little bit fuzzy, but um, at least the video isn't going to be fuzzy. So we're going to start off with a 2A state girls championship kudos. And we start off with a reminder that these are produced for educational purposes and are not judgmental. That's fairly easy on the kudo ones, as they're all positive. We do have a couple of very important learning situations tonight. When we get to those, we'll deal with them. Okay, this one may seem like it's a simple little thing. It's a proper procedure at the end of the half. And John wanted me to include this because when he goes out and observes, quite frequently he sees all kinds of procedures at halftime. And he just wanted us to see this. This crew does an excellent job. They serve as a model example of what needs to be done at the end of the half. So the clock has gone out, time has expired. They meet in the middle, in the center circle, wait for the teams to leave, and then they go to the table and make sure the arrow is all set. So it's very short, but just a reminder. And for new folks on the call, that obviously is very important. Kudo number two, adjusting our position and having a sense of urgency. We've got a good example coming up here with this crew. You can watch our trail official over there. That's Stacy, I believe. Okay. I'm going to try, believe it or not, I apologize if this is going to be repetitive, but I think this is very important for veteran officials starting out, getting our mind back on it, and especially for new officials. And that is these two diagrams right here. As much as possible, we should try to get this open view here where we can see both players and the basketball. And as you can see, Stacy has done a good job of that. We get back to live action. He resists getting in a straight line position. And again, when we say sense of urgency, it isn't, a major movement. It's just a casual, and as you can see, he's looking through the players. Well done. Kudo number three is a model example of what needs to occur on a held ball situation. John also wanted to talk about this one in saying that he's seeing what he sees quite frequently is in a crew of two, both officials go diving in, and sometimes even in a crew of three, both officials go diving in. We'll observe in this clip that that's not what's going to happen, and this is a good model example. So what we see here, we'll start off with our lead official. Great hustle by our lead official. He probably was one that's closest, and he got right in. Hopefully he's talking. Okay, good hustle. Take it easy. Everything's under control. In other words, he shows them. He he shows the presence. He makes a presence. Show them the stripes. Trail official does a nice job of moving in a little bit closer, but doesn't go diving in. He stands back so he can still see everything that's going on. And then, most importantly, and this is what John likes to emphasize, and that is that our center official keeps his distance and observes all 10 players. And that's the key focus here. As try to resist instead of everybody diving in. Kuda number four, good crew coverage coming up here. So we're going to start off in the backcourt. We want to draw attention to our center official here. Watch how he just casually slides up, but he keeps that middle zone monitored. He resists watching the ball as he's coming up the court. And now, as the ball enters the court, of course, our trail has done a good job. As you can see, our trail has got the open view that we just talked about. He's maintained that open view. Good job. And he immediately starts the closely guarded count. Sometimes we see officials like to give this signal, quite frankly, too often. In this case, he resists that, starts the count. The good thing about this, as play continues, is that he keeps the count going, even though it's left his primary coverage area. And so what's happened here is that should it get to 5 seconds, he's got that. And that sometimes doesn't happen. So that's a good example of keeping the count, even though it may leave your primary coverage area.
Jeff, one comment while you're still there.
Sure. Yep.
The trail cuts in front of a player and comes out onto the court. Did you notice as the trail
Oh,
he comes in and he cuts off a player? If you play it back,
yeah. So yeah, we want to be aware of where the players are, right? Yep. Good point. Yeah. Okay.
and Jeff, one more thing. Somebody's having video problems. Is anybody else not seeing the video clip of the game action? If so, send me a note in chat.
Oh, all right. Wait a minute. Oh, did you say one person?
Yeah, we had one person said he couldn't see the video, so
Oh, okay. It must be them, right? Because
yeah, I
everybody. Right.
right. Keep
Okay.
going. Just keep going.
All
We'll
right.
deal with it.
Okay. And lastly, oh, I just want to back up actually. Keeps the count going, and I thought I had a graphic up here in regard to the lead. Oh, the other important kudo here is our trail. uh, this is another thing that John wanted to emphasize is that our trail doesn't retreat. He does a nice job of going to the sideline and going down to the 20-foot, 25-foot mark. Remember, that's what John has been advocating. We used to say 28, but we're better off here at the 25, and he's going to do that right now. So well done on that. Good example. And lastly, our lead. Nice position here, way off the end line, 4 to 6 feet, and observing the rebound action. Good crew coverage all the way around. All right, kudo number 5. This one's dealing with quarter 3 procedures. So this is a review for veterans and anybody that's learning 3, crew of 3. We do have a specific mechanic when the throw-in is below the free throw line extended. And that's going to be demonstrated here by this crew. They do a nice job. So we have an out of bounds ball right here below the free throw line extended. I'll let the video go. So, as you can see, our lead is responsible for administering the throw-in, at least as far as bouncing the ball up the sideline. And our trail is going to be responsible for the count and for chopping in time. So that's done a little bit differently. If you're a transfer, this is the Arizona way that we do it. And this is just a reminder because we sometimes see it done the other way around. Or sometimes what we see is both the lead official and the trail are chopping in the time or having the count. Remember, just as soon as the lead gets rid of the basketball, their eyes have got to come back into their primary coverage area. And the reason for that is because the trail, this is obviously the trail sideline, so the trail is going to monitor all that. So it takes a little bit of discipline. And if you're new to it, by all means, cover it in the pregame to make sure that you're clear on it. All right, this next one is a maybe a little bit corny, but I couldn't resist. This is a super kudo. Great job by the crew and actually the referee in this. I think it's Stacy. Uh, we had 2 potential correctable errors in this situation. I'm going to let you watch it, see if you can pick up what the errors are, and then we'll go over them. Okay, hopefully you picked up that white number 22 fouled black number 22. The first reason for the kudo here is our center official, that Stacy, I believe, is aware that we are in the bonus. Obviously, it's always important to be aware of the bonus situation. I can say at this arena sometimes that's difficult because the clock is way down the end at the end of the arena. But we have a good job here, so immediately we know that we're in a bonus. So this is preventative officiating number 1. So our calling official is going to go make the report. You can see Stacy is still making sure. He's also making sure we get the shooter. He just reconfirms that we're going to be in the bonus, not having a throw in. So we're going to go down the other end and we're going to shoot free throws. See who was really paying attention, because Stacy certainly was. So preventative officiating number 2 is that he goes, and this is the key. Look at how calm, cool, collected. He professionally consults with his partner. He doesn't come running in. No, 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 no. There's the shooter. There's the shooter. They quickly consult, making sure that it is correct. He's got a good idea that it is 22, as we pointed out. It clearly was 22 that was fouled. For some reason, this girl, I don't think there was any, shenanigans going on here. I think there was just confusion. It kind of reinforces the fact that at the spot of the foul, it's important to take our time. color, number, what the foul was, and what happens next. And in this case, what happens next is who is our shooter. And that's easy to say in the comfort of our chair on Sunday evening and we're not having any game going on. But what happens here is that especially if we're going to go down to the other end, and that's why we say this is good crew teamwork here. The non-calling official pick up who that shooter is, especially if you know we're in a bonus. So extremely well done. That's why I labeled it super kudo. So we're going to switch here. We're going to get the correct free throw shooter on the line. Okay, that brings us then to the learning situation. We said there would be one, and I think there's one in each, the boys and the girls. So the first one, this one, we're going to reinforce that adjusting our position to get the open view. And this play demonstrate why it's important. So here's our diagram again. I'm probably going to wear that out, but it's important, especially for new officials, to make sure this is something that we work on as much as possible. Now, we know we can't do that every single time. There's just sometimes that play happens so quick that you can't get open view. But when at all possible, try to do that. So you can see right now, our official is straight lined here. And in a second, you're going to see why that's critical if you haven't already picked it up. So right here, don't be satisfied, move to improve. And there's the reason why. In this case, probably the best bet would be to move out onto the court. The recommendation is first, if at all possible, go down the sideline, what's called get under the play. I don't think there was enough time to get under this play. So I think this one you have to go to recommendation number two, and that is again, resist staying straight line, but step out onto the court for a short period of time so that you can look through and see that open view if at all possible. And again, that's easy sitting in my easy chair here. But again, it's something to be thinking about and something to work towards when you can. Okay, second learning situation. This deals with continuous motion and the lovely on the floor, on the floor, on the floor that probably too many times is a situation where it's called on the floor and it's actually continuous motion. And I think we have one here. Let's take a look. So let's review the continuous motion rule just real quickly. Remember, first of all, it's got to involve a defensive foul, which of course is what we have here. But the two things to remember that, and this, even though this is not a video, we can see that this player has clearly started to attempt to score. And even though the ball isn't up over his head, this is where this customary arm movement comes in. As soon as they end the dribble, that's probably an indication that they're trying to score if it's on a dribble drive. Or if it's on a pass, they may be coming up and getting into a jump shot situation. And the second part, and this is the most important part, and this is, I think, where we sometimes fall down, is that remember, it does allow the player to pivot and step. Obviously, it has to be legal, they can't travel, but they can pivot or they can step while holding the ball to complete their footwork. So arm and feet are involved here. Now, we also have some good news, at least in my opinion. The Rules Committee this year, you're going to hear this at the tip-off meeting, but the Rules Committee this year actually decided to put in a casebook play regarding continuous motion. And believe it or not, up to this point in time, there hasn't been a continuous motion play in there. And the feeling was that maybe we might do a better job and get away from this on the floor mentality and allow players to continue through and score. And that casebook play makes specific reference to stepping and pivoting. And at the tip-off meeting, you're actually going to see a couple of videos. I didn't want to put them in here, but at the tip-off meeting, you're going to be seeing an example of that. We really didn't have it here. This was just basically a shot, but it was a shot from on the floor, but it was continuous motion. And we're going to talk more about that right now. So let's take a look. So, white 15, if you can remember that still photograph, if a cameraman had been over here, it would look basically the same. They basically have got the ball in their hands, and now they are, what are they going to do? Probably, I mean, obviously they could pass, but we can handle that. Most likely they're going to shoot in this location. So this begins her habitual throwing motion, an important term, habitual throwing motion. And if that's the what you have in your mind, that the habitual throwing motion has begun, that is continuous motion, even though she's on the floor. So as play continues, she starts to go up with her shot, and that's where she gets hit. Now, granted, this is not the greatest of camera angles, but the fact that she swung around, some people may say, well, she swung away. But remember, it says a normal arm motion. If she stayed up here, she would have been under the basket, but she's swinging around. That's part of the habitual throwing motion. And so, and then just a reminder, obviously, pointing to the floor is not an approved signal, and that can only cause confusion. So if we should rule that it's occurred before the habitual throwing motion, then all we need to do is just simply wave it off. So, and basically verbalize a no shot or before the shot. But try to stay away from on the floor, because as we just saw there, she was on the floor basically when she made that attempt. Kudo number 8, CC, if you remember, that stands for correct call. This is an excellent illegal screen ruling. Here come the teaching points. So remember, our screening rule, basically two things that we have to be thinking about. We need to check the feet, making sure that they aren't wider than the shoulders. In this case, we can clearly see her feet are outside of her shoulders. So that's one problem. The other problem, she's screening a moving player. And when we screen a moving player, remember we have to give time and distance. One, no more than, at least one, no more than 2 steps. But in this case, it's probably maybe a half a step and she gets picked off. So good ruling here by our trail official. Now, we also want to talk about signals and procedures. It's a model example of the signal with one little exception, kind of like last week. Nice job of behind the head. Remember, it's no longer the punch signal that went out 2 or 3 years ago. So he does a good job of getting the correct signal for team control foul behind the head. And we let it go a little bit further. We're going to see that he gives the direction signal, which is 4 fingers as opposed to the punch. And the only thing that's missing, of course, and we talked about this last week, was that we needed to stop the clock first with a closed fist. but the head and the direction was really good. Okay, that brings us to the boys 2A. I'm going to stop right there for a second and check in anything in the chat.
No, Jeff, we're clear right now.
All right, perfect. All right, now we're going to turn to Scott, AJ, and Mike, and let's take a look, see what they have for us. Kudo number one, Euro step. You hear all kinds of things in regards to the Euro step. Some people say the Euro step is always illegal. Some people say it's mostly always legal. Well, let's find out. So a Euro step basically is you start in one direction and you change with the other. And of course, the pivot foot, like all traveling rulings are important. So here we can see, whoops, I guess it's blocked off, that his right foot, he picks the ball up, he ends his dribble with his right foot on the floor. That makes that his pivot foot. As play continues, he can step with that left foot, and as long as and lift that right pivot foot, as long as he doesn't put the right pivot foot back on the floor, um, that's a legal move. Now, some people may say this is unusual that we see he actually dragged his foot there because we have a mark. The reason why I bring that up is we've got to be careful and not split hairs in regards to whether or not that foot had actually dragged or if it was just off the floor. So be careful here. We're going to err on the side that it was picked up and that as long as he doesn't clearly put that right pivot foot back on the floor, that would be a legal play. It's a little unusual to have a mark on the floor like that. I'll leave it at that. All right, kudo number two. Just a reminder, NCC, and for young officials, if you have somebody observing you on a videotape and they put, these initials in there, you obviously want CC's correct call. And you also want NCC, no call correct. In fact, this is a time when we don't get a whole lot of credit because there's no whistle involved and play continues. But no call correct really separate the really good officials from the so-so officials. And this is a really good example of a potential, I emphasize the word potential travel, but play was allowed to continue correctly. So here come the teaching points. So what we sometimes see is officials are a little bit quick. Once a player goes to the floor, they immediately think it's a travel. And if you watch this official down here, I mean this coach down here, he's thinking it's a travel. Remember, a player that goes to the floor is allowed to roll over as part of the momentum. As long as you in your head think it's part of the momentum, they could roll 2 or 3 times. And also the same thing applies to sliding. They can slide a long distance as long as it's part of their momentum. So as far as that goes, right here, even though he hit the floor with a controlled basketball, it was part of the momentum and he rolled over. And to continue, he does a second example for us. Right here, he sits up. And some people operate under the misconception that you can't sit up. If you are on your butt and you're lying with your back on the floor, by rule is a case play right there. It's given to you. The case play clearly states a player may sit up and pass the ball, start a dribble, or obviously call timeout. And as we see here, he simply passed the ball. So in both of these potential travel situations, perfectly legal. Good job of not blowing the whistle here. Okay, another correct call. This is going to deal with an illegal jump stop. Now, it's a little difficult to see with this camera angle because 44 shields where the ball is. But you can see both of our officials are right onto that. So I got to think that that's a correct call. And it's almost simultaneous by both of them. We're going to talk about that in a minute. All right, so what we have here, oh, I see that's cut off. So white, white number 15 ends his dribble with his right foot on the floor. When he steps with that left foot, that's going to make that the pivot foot. Actually, he's going to jump off that. He jumps off that right foot. He lands simultaneously. That's the key. He jumps on the pivot foot, lands simultaneously on both feet. Legal up to this point. Of course, now he has no pivot foot. That means if he jumps in the air, he's got to release the ball on a pass or an attempt, or he could call timeout. But if he lands back on the floor with he picks up either one of the feet up and puts it back on the floor, then he's travel. And as we can see when we come back to live action, he's going to step one more time with that right foot, and that's where the travel is. And watch our officials. Boom, simultaneously has a double whistle on this. And the good news about this is I think that the correct official has this because it's peeling away from the center official. And it's also in the primary coverage area of our trail. Well, it's kind of lead trail, but it kind of came at the trail, and the trail has got the call. So our center does a good job of passing that call off to our trail official, and AJ makes the ruling, and away we go. One more thing to talk about here, however. Note where this travel occurred. It clearly is inside the three-point arc. And remember, we were actually pace setters in the country last year. Remember, we used the three-point arc as our determining factor in regard to whether the ball comes in on the end line or on the sideline. If you're aware, the Federation actually adopted that this year nationwide. They're going to use that three-point arc as well. The reason why I mention that is because look where we're going to put the ball in play. And the key thing here is, again, signal wise, don't be in a hurry, don't to get out of there. The last important thing is to indicate where the throw in is going to come. And what we've kind of done here is we've kind of left our lead to kind of guess where it is. And unfortunately, the guess is wrong because the throw in, as we'll see here, is going to come in um, on, on the sideline. So that should have taken place at the 3 foot line down here on the end line. But that doesn't take away from the good, correct call for that jump stop travel. All right, another important correct call dealing with a loose ball situation. So sometimes on these loose ball situations, we kind of let anything go, and we got to guard against that. We got to really put our antennas up, and we really got to monitor it carefully. And I've just basically put up what's in the rules book in regard to a player on the floor. And this was kind of updated, I think, 2 years ago. Just a reminder that lying on the playing court is not considered legal guarding position. And if there is contact with the opponent, that person on the floor is responsible for it. And therefore, the foul was correctly called here on the black jersey player. He took the legs right out from under him. Good job. All right, this next one is pretty quick. Model example of rotation. For those of you that are wondering about crews of three and you hear this term rotation, this crew is going to give us a good example of when to rotate. You can see the ball is over here. Our lead official has come across. It's just like this trail has been tied. He pulls him down to the center, and our center goes out and becomes the new trail. I'm going to go fairly quick here because it's pretty basic. If you want to go back and review it, I suggest that. All right, the grand finale, again, I would put this in the category of a super situation, and there is a learning situation involved as well. This is going to be an off-ball intentional foul, in my opinion, amazingly called by the official because it really wasn't in his primary coverage area. I'll talk about that in a second. So the question is to be thinking about when we get back to live action, who is fouled on this play and where did the foul occur? So who was fouled on the play and where did the foul occur? Now I want to go back just a second and talk about that. And here's why I say this is amazing. Because this responsibility of the ball matchup is obviously the trail official right here. The key thing is that he is going to evidently split his vision. He senses something is going on here and he gives it his attention and he is able to clearly see this. It takes a really good official to be able to go off ball when it's in their primary coverage area and get something like this. And it's a good thing he did because this kid is going to get thrown to the floor. It clearly is intentional foul. The other strength shown from this trail official, AJ, is that he doesn't hesitate. Sometimes on intentional fouls, we hesitate. Well, I don't know if I really want to go there or not. He immediately is going to make a decision and goes immediately to the intentional foul signal. Now, good job here with the two crewmates in that general area coming together to sort out what has happened here and what's going to happen next. Obviously, the calling official is going to take it to the table. I would suggest stopping just like any other foul, but sometimes that's easy for me to say here in my chair. So we obviously are going to have two free throws for an intentional foul. Now, of course, the magic question is, who shot the free throws? Did anybody pick up? Remember I asked the question, who was fouled? If you remember, it was number 21. So, important thing to remember when we get intentional foul, technical foul, make sure that we can identify. And again, it's easy sitting in the comfort of our chair, but it's something to be prepared for and work ourselves through it. The other thing is, where did the foul occur? I believe you now, granted, it was right along this arc, but even if it was on the arc, that means that it's inside and it should go to the end line in regards to the throw-in. The good news here is though, is that we sometimes see this, and I saw this 2 weeks ago. Um, we had a good intentional foul call at Sporting Chance, but unfortunately they put the ball back in play opposite the table. And remember, that's only for technical fouls. Intentional foul goes back to the applicable, and we use that term now, one of the four designated spots closest to where the foul occurred. So in this case, it would have been on the end line at the 3 foot spot. But by and large, it was good job of getting that intentional foul. So that concludes. I'm going to stop screen share. All that I have for tonight. So that brings us to, first of all, anything else in the chat box about what we covered tonight?
No, Jeff, we're clear on that. I think one person has their hand up
Oh,
with a
okay.
question. So if Richard Lewis could unmute himself, he
Okay.
can share his question with you.
All
Hi,
right.
Jeffrey.
Hi, Richard.
Good presentation. Now, the last video clip, the only thing I observed for that lead official, he's got a competitive matchup for those two players involved that he probably should be looking at. And good kudos to that trail official who got the fall. And so if you look at it again, that should be, we talk about competitive matchups because that's in lead zone, correct? If you want
Correct.
to take a look at it again. And one of the things I do in the pregame, because we do primarily three-person officiating where I'm at right now, but I call in Tucson, is what I always pregame with my crew is, of course, we do the communication that you're talking about, before, during, after a foul, the correct throw on spot and so forth. And on that play, what I do is on the big ones, I call them, if we have a technical foul, if we have an intentional foul, or those kind of fouls that, probably take a minute to process, I make sure I go to the closest official that may be involved, which would be the lead, confirm what we have, who the foul is on, that's an intentional foul, and where we're going to throw it in. All those things I make sure are in order so that everybody in the crew is clear on what to do. And so if we would have attained that, we would have known who got fouled, who was going to shoot. Okay. And after the resumption of play, we would go to the end line because it occurred inside the arc. All those things I make sure are hit so that everybody knows what to do during that process.
Right. No, good advice. Okay, the mic is open for if you have any other questions in regard to what you saw tonight or anything that pertaining to basketball. I know a lot of you may want to get back to the Cardinal game. All right, if I don't see anything, we'll just do our little countdown that we normally do. Going once, going twice. John wanted me to remind people when we closed, remember his Crew of Two meeting Wednesday night at the AIA office. So with that, have a good week and hope to see you next Sunday night when we do the 3A Girls Kudos. Have a good week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome. Thank you, Jimmy.